The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy and destiny. For 1,000 generations, the Jedi Order has served as its guardians, interpreting its will and maintaining balance. But what happens when a power beyond the Force itself arrives to question whether the Guardians have become the violators? What happens when divine judgment comes not from the cosmic energy that flows through all life, but from something older, something absolute, something that answers only to God? The first sign came at 0300 hours, Coruscant Standard Time. Every Jedi in the temple woke simultaneously, gasping as if drowning. Not from a disturbance in the Force. This was something else entirely, something that existed outside the invisible currents they'd spent lifetimes learning to navigate. Masters stumbled from meditation chambers. Padawans cried out in their dormitories. Even Yoda, ancient and wise beyond measure, clutched his gimmer stick with trembling hands as he sensed what approached. In the council chamber, the holocom units activated without input, displaying the same message across every screen. Judgment comes. Above the temple, the night sky tore open. It wasn't a hyperspace emergence. No ship breached real space with the familiar tunnel of stretched starlight. Instead, reality simply split. A wound in the fabric of existence that bled emerald fire tinged with sickly green. The atmospheric sensors screamed warnings that made no sense, readings suggesting the presence of matter that shouldn't exist, energy signatures that violated every known law of physics. Through the tier stepped a figure wreathed in a tattered green cloak, and Coruscant's 5 trillion inhabitants felt a cold wind that had nothing to do with weather patterns. The Spectre descended toward the Jedi Temple like a pronouncement of doom given form. His host body, Jim Corrigan, a dead detective from a universe the Jedi couldn't even conceive of, was merely the vessel for something infinitely more terrible. Beneath the cloak, pale skin stretched over gaunt features. Eyes burned with emerald fire that had witnessed every sin committed since the dawn of creation. The weight of divine authority pressed down on the planet-wide city, and for the first time in millennia, the Jedi Order felt something it had almost forgotten: fear. He landed on the temple's landing platform without sound, his feet touching durasteel that immediately developed fracture patterns resembling tears. The temple guards rushed forward, ignited lightsaber pikes humming with yellow plasma, but they stopped 3 meters away as if hitting an invisible wall. They hadn't been blocked. They simply couldn't bring themselves to come closer. Something primal in their souls recognized what stood before them. "Stand aside," the Spectre said, his voice layered with harmonics that suggested thousands speaking in unison. "I have come to judge the Jedi Order for their sins. This is not a matter of your Force. This is a matter of divine law." Master Shaak Ti, who'd been meditating in the meditation gardens, arrived with a contingent of Jedi Knights. She was Togruta, experienced in battle, her leku marked with the white patterns of wisdom. She'd faced down separatist war droids and dark side assassins without flinching. Now she stopped, her blue lightsaber wavering, as she looked into those burning eyes and saw every mistake she'd ever made reflected back at her. "What are you?" she managed, her voice barely steady. "I am the Spectre, the spirit of vengeance, the hand of the presence you do not worship because you've mistaken the Force for divinity itself." The figure's cloak billowed, though there was no wind. "I am judgment incarnate, sent because your order has strayed so far from your purpose that the cosmic balance cries out for correction. We serve the light," Shaak Ti said, though her words sounded hollow even to her own ears. "We are peacekeepers." "You are generals," the Spectre corrected, and the word carried such weight that several Jedi Knights fell to their knees. "You command clone armies bred into slavery to fight a war that serves the darkness you claim to oppose. You have become what you once stood against, and now you will answer for it." Inside the council chamber, Mace Windu felt the approach like a blade against his throat. Around the circular room, the greatest masters of the Order gathered via hologram. Yoda, from the meditation gardens. Ki-Adi-Mundi from the operations center. Plo Koon from his fighter wing stationed above Coruscant. They all felt it. This being that walked through their temple wasn't connected to the Force at all. He existed outside it, and that should have been impossible. "Sense him I cannot," Yoda said quietly, his ears drooping. "A void he is, but not of darkness. Of something other." The doors to the council chamber opened without being touched, and the Spectre entered. 12 Jedi Masters, the wisest and most powerful Force users in the known galaxy, instinctively reached for weapons they couldn't draw. The Spectre's gaze swept across them, and each felt the weight of every decision they'd made, every order given, every compromise accepted in the name of winning an unwinnable war. "Jedi Council," the Spectre intoned, spreading his arms. "Your judgment begins now." The silence in the council chamber was absolute, broken only by the faint hum of Coruscant's endless traffic far below. Mace Windu, Master of the Order and champion of Vapad, stood from his chair with the measured calm of a man who'd faced death countless times. His hand didn't touch his lightsaber. Some instinct told him it would be meaningless here. But his presence in the Force expanded, purple-tinged and resolute. "You stand uninvited in the heart of the Jedi Order," Mace said, his deep voice carrying the authority of centuries of tradition. "State your purpose plainly or leave. We have no time for cryptic threats while the galaxy burns." The Spectre tilted his head, and for a moment, something almost resembling pity crossed those terrible features. "Your arrogance is precisely why I'm here, Master Windu. You believe yourself guardians of peace, yet you've become architects of war. You speak of defending the Republic while commanding armies of manufactured slaves. You preach detachment, while your chosen one drowns in attachments you refuse to acknowledge." Obi-Wan Kenobi, appearing via hologram from a star destroyer above Christophsis, spoke carefully. "The Clone Wars were thrust upon us. We fight to defend innocence from separatist aggression. Surely you can see." "I see everything," the Spectre interrupted, and his eyes flared with emerald fire. "Every sin, every compromise, every lie you've told yourselves to justify abandoning your principles. Shall I enumerate them for you?" He raised one pale hand, and reality rippled. The chamber transformed. Suddenly, the council members weren't in the temple anymore. Or rather, the temple existed around them as a ghostly overlay. But they witnessed something else entirely. A battlefield on Geonosis, 3 years prior. Mace Windu led a strike team of 200 Jedi into the arena, igniting lightsabers against droid armies. The vision played out with horrible clarity. Jedi Knights, peacekeepers sworn to defend life, cutting down battle droids by the dozens. "The Battle of Geonosis," the Spectre narrated. "The moment your order became generals instead of guardians. You'll argue the droids aren't alive, that they're merely machines. But you know better. You sense their programming, their rudimentary awareness, and still you destroy them without hesitation." "They were trying to execute us," Mace countered, though his voice carried less certainty. "We defended ourselves." "You chose to be there," the Spectre said. "You could have withdrawn. You could have refused to lead armies. Instead, you accepted military rank and command over beings bred solely for warfare." The vision shifted. Now they saw the clone troopers, identical faces beneath identical helmets, engineered from a single template, aged at accelerated rates to reach combat readiness faster. They saw the cloning facilities on Kamino, where thousands of embryos grew in artificial wombs, their futures predetermined before their first conscious thought. "The clones," the Spectre continued relentlessly, "created without consent, given no choice in their service, trained from childhood to die for a republic that views them as property. You command these slaves, you order them into battle, you watch them die, and you tell yourselves it's necessary." Plo Koon's hologram flickered with distress. "We care for the clones under our command. They're not slaves. They're soldiers who fight willingly for—" "They were bred to fight willingly," the Spectre interrupted. "Their loyalty is genetic conditioning, not free will. Can you not see the horror of that? An entire army of sentient beings created to serve and die, and you've accepted them without question because they make your war possible." Yoda, who'd remained silent throughout, finally spoke. His voice was heavy, centuries of wisdom turning inward. Know this, we do. Troubled by it, many of us are. But refuse this burden, we cannot. Fall, the Republic would. Triumph, the Sith would. Ah yes, the Sith. The Spectre's expression darkened, if such a thing were possible. Your ancient enemy. But tell me, Master Yoda, how many Sith are there? 2. There are always, Yoda replied. A master and an apprentice, the rule of 2. 2 Sith, the Spectre repeated. And for 2 Sith, you've transformed your entire order into military commanders. You've conscripted thousands of Jedi into warfare. You've abandoned your temples across the galaxy to serve on battlefields. Does this not seem disproportionate? Ki-Adi-Mundi's hologram shifted uncomfortably. The Separatists field millions of battle droids across hundreds of worlds. We cannot simply ignore. The Separatists are controlled by the Sith, the Spectre said, which means every battle you fight, every campaign you wage, is precisely what your enemy wants. You're so focused on winning the war that you haven't asked why the war exists in the first place. The visions shifted again. Now they saw council chambers throughout the years of the war. Debates over strategy, discussions of acceptable casualties, decisions to prioritize some worlds over others. They saw Jedi Masters voting to commit troops to battles they knew would result in thousands of deaths. They saw the gradual hardening of hearts that had once valued all life. You've become tacticians, the Spectre said quietly, calculating victories and losses in terms of bodies and resources. You speak of acceptable casualties and strategic necessities. Tell me, when did peacekeepers learn to think like generals? When did Jedi Masters become comfortable ordering deaths? Mace Windu's jaw clenched. We do what we must to protect the innocent. If we didn't fight, trillions would suffer under Separatist occupation. Perhaps, the Spectre acknowledged. Or perhaps the war would end if you refused to fight it. Perhaps the enemy you fear would be exposed if you didn't provide exactly the opposition they require. But you'll never know, because you've never questioned whether fighting is the answer. The visions faded, and they were back in the council chamber. But the room felt smaller now, the walls pressing in with the weight of accusation. You want to judge us? Mace asked, anger finally breaking through his control. Then judge. We've made difficult choices in impossible circumstances. We've sacrificed our principles to save lives. If that's sin, then we're guilty. But we'd make the same choices again. The Spectre studied him with those burning eyes, and for the first time, something like respect entered his voice. At least you're honest about it. That's more than most can say. He turned, his cloak sweeping across the polished floor. But honesty doesn't absolve sin, Master Windu, and your judgment has only just begun. I will visit every Jedi general commanding troops in this war. I will show them what they've become. And then, the Order will decide whether to seek redemption or damnation. He walked toward the chamber doors, which opened before him. Wait, Obi-Wan called out. What gives you the right to judge us? Who sent you? The Spectre paused at the threshold and looked back. When he spoke, his voice resonated with power that made the Force itself seem like a whisper. I am the hand of God. I answer to the presence that exists beyond your Force, beyond your understanding of light and dark. I am vengeance for every innocent harmed by those who claim righteousness. And I am here because your sins have reached a level that demands cosmic attention. He vanished in a flash of emerald fire, leaving behind only the faint smell of ozone and the profound silence of 12 masters confronting truths they'd been avoiding for 3 years. The Spectre's judgment didn't remain confined to Coruscant. Across the galaxy, on battlefields where clone troopers died by the thousands and Jedi led them into the fire, reality began to crack. Not physically, the ships still flew, the blasters still fired, the war ground forward with its terrible momentum. But something else broke. The illusions that allowed Jedi to sleep at night despite commanding armies. On the planet Ryloth, Jedi Master Mace Windu oversaw the siege of a Separatist stronghold dug into the planet's twilight zone. His clone battalion, the 187th, had already suffered 37% casualties pushing through defensive positions. Standard military doctrine would call for withdrawal and orbital bombardment, but Windu knew that bombardment would collapse the cavern networks where Twi'lek civilians sheltered. So he'd ordered the ground assault to continue, accepting higher clone casualties to save alien lives. He stood in the command center reviewing tactical displays when the temperature dropped 20 degrees in an instant. The Spectre materialized beside him, and every clone trooper in the room instinctively raised their weapons before lowering them in confusion. Their training didn't cover threats that appeared from nowhere, that made their combat instincts scream warnings their sensors couldn't detect. "Master Windu," the Spectre said quietly. "Do you remember their names?" Mace turned, his expression carved from stone. He'd been expecting this. "Whose names?" "The clones who died today on your orders." The Spectre gestured, and the command center's holographic display shifted. Instead of tactical overlays, it now showed faces. Hundreds of them. Clone faces, identical in feature but unique in expression. Some grinning, some solemn, some caught mid-laugh during rare moments of rest between battles. "CT-7744, the Spectre narrated as each face appeared. "Killed by sniper fire while advancing on your command. CT-9823, crushed when a tunnel collapsed during the flanking maneuver you authorized. CT-5531, died holding a breach point so his brothers could advance. CT-3421. "Enough," Mace said, but his voice lacked its usual authority. CT-3421 was 19 years old. The Spectre continued mercilessly. Biologically. Actually created only 9 years ago. Aged at twice the normal rate so he could die for a republic that doesn't even grant him citizenship. He had a nickname, Lucky. His brothers called him that because he'd survived 3 major engagements without injury. His luck ended today when shrapnel from a thermal detonator severed his femoral artery. He bled out in 47 seconds, calling for his brothers who couldn't reach him. The face in the hologram was young, despite the accelerated aging. Human features marked with the exhaustion of too many battles fought too quickly. Mace looked at it and felt something crack inside his carefully maintained emotional discipline. "I remember Lucky," he said quietly. "He was a good soldier." "He was a slave," the Spectre corrected. "Bred in a laboratory, trained to obey, sent to die before he understood what life could offer beyond warfare. And you commanded him. You, who preached the Force's respect for all life. Sent him into battle knowing he might not return. To save the Twi'leks," Mace said, gesturing toward the tactical display that showed civilian population estimates. "Thousands of innocents sheltering in those caverns. If we'd used orbital strikes, you would have saved clone lives at the cost of alien civilians," the Spectre finished. "And you chose the civilians. A moral calculation. But tell me, Master Windu, did you ask the clones if they wanted to make that sacrifice?" Silence filled the command center. The surviving clone troopers, their helmets hiding their expressions, stood motionless, waiting. "They're soldiers," Mace said, but the words sounded hollow. "They understand the mission." "They're conditioned to understand the mission," the Spectre said. "Genetically engineered to be loyal, psychologically trained to obey, neurologically programmed to value mission success above their own survival. You call that understanding. I call it slavery, wrapped in military protocol." The Spectre moved to the nearest clone trooper, a commander whose armor bore purple markings denoting Windu's battalion. "What's your name, soldier?" The clone's voice was steady, professional. "CT-4409, sir. Commander Pons." "Not your designation. Your name." A pause. "Pons, sir." "And if I asked you to walk into that separatist stronghold alone, knowing you'd die but your death might save your brothers, would you do it?" "Yes, sir." "Without hesitation?" "Without hesitation, sir." The Spectre turned back to Mace. "You see? He'd die on command, instantly without question. Does that sound like free will to you? Or does it sound like exactly what the Kaminoans designed him to do?" Mace's hand clenched on his lightsaber hilt, not in threat, but in frustration. What would you have me do? Refuse to lead them? Let the Separatists win? Let Count Dooku and his Sith Master claim the galaxy? I would have you question, the Spectre said. Question why you're fighting. Question who benefits from this war. Question whether the path you walk leads to light or merely deeper into shadow. He raised his hand, and the command center dissolved into vision. Mace suddenly stood on a battlefield he recognized, Harun Kal, his homeworld, where he'd fought during the war's second year. But now he saw it differently. He watched himself from outside, saw the Jedi general he'd become giving orders with crisp efficiency, saw clone troopers execute those orders, saw them die executing those orders, saw their bodies left behind as the battle moved forward because there wasn't time to recover the dead. And he saw the dark side energy swirling around him, feeding on the death, growing stronger with every life ended in service to the mission. You practice Vayapad, the Spectre said, his voice echoing across the vision. A lightsaber form that channels dark side energy and redirects it against your enemies. You believe you've mastered it, that you can touch darkness without being corrupted. But look closely, Master Windu. Look at what you've become. In the vision, Mace saw his own face as he'd fought. Cold, calculating, efficient. The face of a killer who'd learned to justify killing in the name of peace. The face of a general who'd learned to measure success in body counts and territorial gains. It wasn't the face of a Jedi peacekeeper. It was the face of a warrior who'd forgotten what peace meant. The dark side offers power through passion, through commitment to victory at any cost, the Spectre continued. You've avoided its obvious corruptions. You don't seek personal power. You don't hate your enemies. But you've accepted its fundamental premise, that the end justifies the means, that enough death in service to the right cause can somehow accumulate into righteousness. The vision shifted. Now Mace saw battles yet to come, futures that might unfold if the current path continued. He saw himself growing harder, more willing to sacrifice, more comfortable with the necessity of death. He saw the Jedi Order transformed completely into a military organization, temples abandoned for war rooms, meditation replaced by tactical briefings. He saw the light in Jedi eyes dimming, replaced by the hollow gaze of soldiers who'd killed too often to remember why they'd picked up weapons in the first place. And at the end of that path, he saw darkness absolute. A future where the Jedi Order served tyranny while believing they served justice. This is one possible future, the Spectre said. Not inevitable, but probable, if you continue as you are. The dark side is patient. It doesn't corrupt through obvious temptation. It corrupts through small compromises that seem necessary, through gradual acceptance of things that once would have horrified you. The vision released Mace, and he staggered back into the command center's reality. Commander Pons caught his arm, steadying him. Sir? Are you all right? Mace looked at the clone commander, Pons, who'd served beside him for 2 years, who'd saved his life 3 times, whose dreams and fears and hopes Mace had never once asked about because it was easier to think of him as a reliable soldier, rather than a person with inner life. I don't know, Mace admitted quietly. The Spectre began to fade, his work here complete. Judgment continues, Master Windu. On every battlefield, in every campaign, your order will face what you've become, and then you'll decide. He vanished, leaving Mace Windu standing among his clones, looking at the tactical display with new eyes that saw not strategic opportunities but graves waiting to be filled. In the Imperial Palace on Coruscant, hidden behind layers of political theater and bureaucratic necessity, Chancellor Palpatine sat in shadows and felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: uncertainty. The emergency session of the Jedi Council had rippled through the Force like a stone dropped in still water. Even from his shielded chambers, even through the elaborate veils of deception he'd woven over decades, Palpatine felt the disturbance. Not in the Force itself, that remained his domain, twisted and manipulated to serve his grand design. This was something else. Something outside. His yellow eyes narrowed as he reached through the dark side, probing, searching for the source of disruption. The Force showed him nothing. Not emptiness like a Yuuzhan Vong, not shadow like a skilled practitioner of concealment. Literally nothing. As if the being that had visited the Jedi Temple didn't exist in any space the Force could touch. That should have been impossible. "Masameda," Palpatine called, his voice measured and calm despite the growing concern. His Chagrian aide entered immediately, blue skin glistening under the chamber's dim lighting. "Yes, Chancellor?" "There was an incident at the Jedi Temple. Find out what happened. Quietly." The aide bowed and departed. Palpatine returned to his meditation, reaching deeper into the dark side, consulting the techniques he'd learned from his master, Darth Plagueis, and the ancient Sith knowledge stored in holocrons hidden beneath this very palace. Nothing. The entity remained invisible to his senses, and that made it dangerous. His carefully orchestrated war had been proceeding perfectly. The Jedi spread thin across the galaxy, gradually corrupted by warfare. The Republic granting him emergency powers to combat a crisis he himself had created. Order 66 embedded in every clone trooper's mind, waiting for his command. Everything positioned for the moment when he transformed the failing Republic into his empire, when the Jedi would be hunted to extinction by the very soldiers they commanded. And now this. An unknown variable. An entity claiming divine authority, judging the Jedi for sins that Palpatine himself had orchestrated them into committing. He wouldn't tolerate disruption. Not when he was so close. The Spectre appeared before him without warning, materializing in the Chancellor's private office as if distance and walls were merely suggestions. Palpatine's hand didn't reach for the lightsabers hidden beneath his robes. Not yet. Instead, he arranged his features into an expression of mild surprise appropriate for a concerned politician encountering something inexplicable. "Extraordinary," Palpatine said, rising from his chair with the careful movements of an elderly statesman. "Forgive me, but I don't recall scheduling any appointments this evening. You know exactly what I am," the Spectre said, his emerald eyes blazing with light that made the shadows in Palpatine's office seem darker by contrast. "You've sensed me through your precious dark side, probed with all your Sith knowledge and found nothing. That terrifies you." The mask of pleasant confusion slipped. Palpatine's expression hardened into something ancient and cruel. "Bold words, creature, but you're in the presence of power you cannot begin to comprehend. I am—" "Darth Sidious," the Spectre interrupted. "Dark Lord of the Sith, Master of Darth Tyrannus, orchestrator of the Clone Wars, architect of the Jedi's downfall. You've manipulated both sides of this conflict, turned the galaxy's guardians into generals, positioned yourself to transform a democracy into a dictatorship. You are, in many ways, the cause of everything I've come to judge." Silence hung between them. Then Palpatine laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "Well, that's refreshing at least. So few beings have the clarity to see the full scope of my work." His voice shifted, becoming deeper, resonant with dark side power. "You call yourself a judge. You claim authority over the Jedi. But you've made a critical error, creature. You've come before a Sith Lord and revealed what you are." The temperature in the room plummeted. Darkness gathered around Palpatine like a living thing, centuries of accumulated evil condensing into nearly physical form. He raised one hand, and Force lightning erupted from his fingertips, not the theatrical display he'd use against Jedi, but the full terrible power of the dark side channeled through a master who'd perfected the technique over decades. The lightning struck the Spectre directly, and did nothing. The emerald fire that wreathed the spirit of vengeance didn't even flicker. The Force lightning simply stopped at the boundary of his presence, as if encountering a wall that existed outside the Force's ability to affect. Palpatine's eyes widened fractionally, the first genuine surprise he'd shown in years. "The Force is powerful within this galaxy," the Spectre said calmly, unmoved by the attack that would have killed any other being instantly. "But I don't exist in the Force. I exist beyond it. Your power, impressive as it is, operates within a framework I'm not bound by." Palpatine released the lightning and reached deeper into the dark side, attempting techniques that bent reality itself. Sith sorcery that could shatter minds, Force storms that could tear beings apart at the molecular level. None of it touched the Spectre. It was like watching a master swordsman attack an opponent made of water. The strikes were perfect, but they simply couldn't connect with something that existed on a different plane of being. Fascinating, Palpatine hissed, genuine interest mixing with growing anger. You exist outside the Force entirely. That should be impossible. Everything, matter, energy, life, death, all of it flows from and returns to the Force. You're an aberration. I'm Judgment, the Spectre corrected. And you, Darth Sidious, are among the most guilty beings I've ever encountered. Your sins span decades. Hundreds of thousands have died because of your manipulations. The Jedi Order's fall from grace exists because you orchestrated it. This entire war, millions dead, whole worlds burning, is your creation. Yes, Palpatine said simply, abandoning pretense entirely. It is, and it's magnificent. Order emerging from chaos, strength replacing the weakness of democracy, power concentrated instead of dispersed among fools who couldn't wield it properly. I've reshaped the galaxy according to vision and will. That's not sin, that's ambition. You've murdered innocents by the millions. I've eliminated the unworthy and elevated the worthy. The strong survive, the weak perish. That's the way of the Sith, the way of the dark side, the true nature of the Force itself stripped of Jedi delusions about balance and peace. The Spectre's expression remained impassive, but something in his presence intensified. You believe yourself beyond judgment. That's common among tyrants. They all think their crimes are justified by their goals. Not beyond judgment, Palpatine corrected with a smile that contained no humanity. Beyond your judgment. You say you can't be touched by the Force. Very well. But you're standing in my galaxy, creature. And I've had 1,000 years of Sith knowledge to study powers even the ancient Jedi never imagined. He moved his hands in intricate patterns, speaking words in the tongue of the ancient Sith. Not spells that channeled the Force, but invocations that called on something older, darker. Sith sorcery that predated the rule of two, that reached into spaces between realms, that touched on the shadows even the Force couldn't illuminate. The Spectre felt the attack, felt dark power from this universe's own metaphysical foundations reaching for him. Not Force energy, but something more primal. The underlying darkness that existed because light existed. The cosmic shadow that gave evil its strength. For the first time, the spirit of vengeance had to defend himself. Emerald fire erupted around him. Divine light meeting Sith darkness in a collision that made the air itself scream. The office's durasteel walls began to crack. Windows overlooking Coruscant's endless cityscape shattered outward. The dark side and divine justice met in a contest that had no precedent. Two absolute powers grinding against each other with neither able to fully overcome the other. Palpatine felt the resistance and smiled with genuine delight. Ah, so you can be touched. Perhaps not by the Force, but by powers that exist beneath it. Powers the Sith learned to wield when the Jedi were still debating philosophy. You're strong, creature, but you're not invincible. The Spectre pushed back, and Palpatine stumbled, forced to release his sorcery or be consumed by the backlash. They stood across from each other in the ruined office, both reassessing. You cannot kill me, the Spectre said. Divine power sustains me beyond this vessel, but I see you cannot be judged while you draw on darkness that exists as a fundamental force in this universe. We are stalemated. How inconvenient for both of us, Palpatine replied, already calculating. You want to judge the Jedi, perhaps destroy the Order for their compromises. I want to destroy the Order for very different reasons. We have common cause. We have nothing in common, don't we? Palpatine's voice became persuasive, honeyed with dark side influence that he knew wouldn't control the Spectre but might still appeal to his sense of justice. You've seen what they've become. Generals, warriors, leaders of slave armies. They've abandoned their principles, compromised their light, become what they always feared. If you judge them, if you break them, I merely finish what you've started. The Spectre studied the Sith Lord with those burning eyes that saw every sin, every murder, every manipulation. You think I'll help you. I think you'll do what you came to do, Judge the Jedi. What happens after? Well, that's simply consequence. Palpatine spread his hands. I won't interfere with your judgment, creature. Go, visit every Jedi general, show them their sins, break their confidence in their path, and when you're done, when the Order is fractured and questioning itself, weakened by divine doubt, I'll do what I was always going to do. Order 66, the Spectre said quietly. Palpatine's surprise showed again. You know. I see all sins, including those yet to be committed. The biochips in the clones' brains. The command that will turn them against their Jedi commanders. Genocide disguised as military protocol. And you'll allow it? The Spectre's expression became impossibly cold. I'm bound by rules you don't understand. I can judge. I can punish the guilty. But I cannot prevent sins that haven't been committed. Free will, even the free will to choose evil, is sacred to the presence I serve. You will commit your genocide, Palpatine. And when you do, you'll answer for it. I look forward to it, Palpatine said with absolute confidence. But that's a confrontation for the future. For now, I suggest we stay out of each other's way. You have Jedi to judge. I have an empire to build. Let's not complicate each other's plans. The Spectre regarded him for a long moment, then nodded once. Agreed. But know this. Darth Sidious, when your sins reach their culmination, when you sit on your throne of tyranny believing yourself untouchable, I will return. And on that day, not all the darkness in the galaxy will save you. He vanished in emerald fire, leaving Palpatine alone in his shattered office. The Sith Lord sat slowly, ignoring the broken windows and cracked walls, and smiled. The Spectre thought he was unpredictable, that his judgment would weaken the Jedi Order beyond what Palpatine had planned. But Sidious had been manipulating variables for decades. One more, even a divine one, was just another piece to move on the board. Let the creature judge. Let him break Jedi spirits and shatter their confidence. It only made the coming Order 66 that much more certain to succeed. Palpatine reached for his comlink. Maz Ameda, send word to Lord Tyrannus. I have new instructions regarding the Jedi. The timetable has moved up. Somewhere in the Force, something ancient and terrible began to laugh. The prosecution of Mace Windu happened not on a battlefield, but in the place where his soul was most vulnerable. The quiet. 3 days after their first encounter, Mace meditated in his quarters aboard the Endurance, his flagship above Ryloth. The campaign was complete. The Separatists had withdrawn. The Twi'lek civilians were safe. By every military metric, the mission was a success. 143 clone troopers had died to achieve it. Mace had written the casualty report himself, reducing each life to a designation number and cause of death. He sat cross-legged on the meditation mat, trying to find the calm center that had always sustained him. But every time he reached for the Force, he saw their faces. CT-7744, CT-9823, CT-5531. Lucky. The dead whose names the Spectre had forced him to learn. The temperature dropped. You don't sleep anymore, the Spectre said, manifesting in the corner of the quarters like a shadow given substance. You close your eyes and see the dead. That's good. It means your conscience hasn't been completely calcified by war. Mace didn't open his eyes. Have you come to judge me again? Or just to torment me? Both. Neither. I've come because your judgment is more complex than the others. The Spectre moved closer, his presence making the air heavy. Most Jedi generals have slowly compromised their principles, sliding down a slope they didn't recognize until they were already falling. But you, Mace Windu, you knew. From the beginning, you understood what accepting military command would mean, and you did it anyway. Someone had to, Mace said quietly, finally opening his eyes. The Republic needed defenders. The Jedi Order couldn't stand aside while the galaxy burned. Couldn't or wouldn't. The Spectre's emerald gaze was relentless. Master Yoda could have refused. The Council could have said no. The Jedi could have remained peacekeepers, mediators, defenders of the innocent without becoming generals. But that would have required accepting powerlessness. It would have meant watching events unfold without controlling them, it would have meant abandoning trillions to separatist occupation. Perhaps. Or perhaps the war would have taken a different shape entirely if the Jedi hadn't provided exactly the opposition the Sith required. The Spectre circled him like a prosecutor laying out evidence. But let's talk about what you did once you accepted command. Let's discuss the specific decisions that brought you to this moment. Reality shifted, and Mace found himself standing on Dantooine, 8 months into the war. He watched himself from outside, a younger version, still believing this conflict would end quickly. That Mace stood before a group of Padawans barely old enough to build their first lightsabers. The Council has decided, Vision Mace was saying, that promising students will be granted early knighthood to serve as commanders. The war requires more Jedi in leadership positions. One of the Padawans, a Togruta girl of 15, spoke hesitantly. Master Windu, we haven't completed our training. The trials will be waived for those who show sufficient aptitude. War demands adaptation. The Spectre's voice narrated over the memory. 12 Padawans were granted early knighthood that day. 8 of them died within 6 months, leading clone troopers into battles they weren't prepared for. But you needed commanders, so you gave children lightsabers and called them generals. They were trained, Mace protested, but his voice lacked conviction. They were adequate. There's a difference. A fully trained Jedi Knight spends years mastering not just combat, but wisdom, judgment, ethical reasoning. You rushed students through training because the war machine needed bodies in command positions. The Spectre gestured, and the vision shifted to a battlefield on Umbara. This is Padawan, excuse me, Knight. Saldra, the Togruta girl from that day. Watch what happens. The young Jedi led her clone battalion through the shadowy forests of Umbara, bioluminescent plants casting eerie light on their advance. She was competent with her lightsaber, adequate in force techniques. But when the Umbaran militia ambushed them with weapons the clone's intelligence hadn't anticipated, she panicked, made a tactical error, ordered her troops into a kill zone trying to retrieve wounded clones who were already dead. 47 clones died in that ambush. Knight Saldra died with them, cut down by hostile fire while trying to save soldiers she'd led into disaster. She wasn't ready, the Spectre said softly. You knew it when you promoted her, but you needed commanders more than you needed wisdom. Mace watched the young Jedi die and felt something break inside him. I believed they'd learn through experience. That combat would forge them into what? Killers? Generals? They were peacekeepers in training, and you turned them into warriors before they understood what peace meant. The Spectre's judgment was absolute. That's not compromise, Master Windu. That's sacrifice of the innocent for military necessity. That's a sin. The vision shifted again. Now Mace stood in the Jedi Temple archives, 2 years into the war. He was accessing classified files, reading reports of Force-sensitive children identified across the galaxy. Potential Jedi waiting to be discovered and trained. You stopped looking for them, the Spectre observed. The Jedi tradition of finding Force-sensitive children and bringing them to the temple for training. You suspended it. Too few Jedi to spare for recruitment when you needed them on battlefields. It was temporary, Mace said, until the war ended. The war has no end in sight. Those children you didn't recruit. Some fell to the dark side without training. Some were captured by the separatists and experimented on. Some simply lived and died without ever understanding their connection to the Force. You abandoned them because finding new students was less important than maintaining your army. Vision after vision cascaded through Mace's awareness. Decisions he'd made, compromises he'd accepted, using clone troopers as expendable advance units because their lives were militarily acceptable losses, authorizing interrogation techniques that bordered on torture when seeking intelligence on separatist movements, voting to keep the war's true cost hidden from the Senate because accurate casualty reports might undermine public support. Each decision had seemed justified at the time. Each compromise had been measured against the greater good. But watching them compiled, seeing the pattern of gradual moral erosion, Mace understood what he'd become. I created Vapad to walk the line between light and dark, he said quietly, to channel aggression without falling to it, I thought I was strong enough to command armies without being corrupted by warfare." "You were wrong," the Spectre said. "Vapad requires constant vigilance, perfect balance. But war doesn't allow perfection. Every day you command troops, every battle you oversee, you feed the dark side within you, slowly, gradually, until the Jedi Master who valued all life becomes the general who calculates how many deaths are acceptable." Mace looked at his hands. The hands that had held a lightsaber in defense of the innocent, now stained with the blood of those he'd ordered into battle. "What would you have me do? Resign my commission? Abandon the clones who serve under me?" "I would have you acknowledge what you've become. I would have you stop lying to yourself about necessity and righteousness. I would have you face the truth. You've fallen, Master Windu. Not into obvious darkness, not into hatred or rage, but into something more insidious. The belief that good intentions justify terrible actions." The Spectre leaned close, and Mace felt the weight of absolute judgment. "You lead armies of slaves. You've sent children to die. You've compromised every principle the Jedi Order was built on, and you've told yourself it was necessary. But here's the truth you refuse to face. The war you're fighting is controlled by a Sith Lord who's using you. Every battle you win brings him closer to ultimate victory. Every compromise you make weakens the light you claim to serve." "Then what's the alternative?" Mace demanded, anger finally breaking through. "Surrender? Let the Sith win unopposed?" "Question," the Spectre said simply. "Question why you're fighting. Question whether you're truly serving the light or just opposing the dark without understanding the difference. Question whether being a general serves the Force better than being a peacekeeper would." He began to fade, his judgment delivered. "Wait," Mace called. "You said you're the spirit of vengeance. If I'm guilty, where's my punishment?" The Spectre's smile was terrible to behold. "Your punishment, Master Windu, is to continue living with the consequences of your choices. To see clearly what you've become and understand that you did it to yourself. To know that every clone who dies under your command adds to a weight you'll carry forever. That's a harsher sentence than any divine retribution I could impose." He vanished, leaving Mace Windu alone with his reflection in the viewport, a Jedi Master who looked more like a soldier, whose eyes had the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd seen too much death. The comlink on his belt chirped. "General Windu, we're receiving new orders from Coruscant. The Council wants you to take the 187th to Kiros. Separatist forces have enslaved the Togruta colonists there." Mace closed his eyes. Another battle. Another calculation of acceptable losses. Another step down the path he now recognized but couldn't seem to leave. "Acknowledged," he said. "Plot the hyperspace course. We move out in 1 hour." Because what else could he do? The alternative was to stop, and stopping meant accepting that everything he'd done was wrong. It was easier to keep moving, to keep fighting, to keep telling himself that somehow, eventually, it would all be worth it. The Spectre was right. That was his punishment. To see the truth and continue anyway. Because the alternative was unbearable. Anakin Skywalker was in the temple's main hangar, supervising repairs on his modified Eta II starfighter, when the world stopped making sense. He'd felt the disturbance in the Force days ago. Every Jedi had. The presence that had visited the Council, the judgments being passed across the galaxy. Obi-Wan had warned him to be prepared, but Anakin had dismissed it. He'd faced Sith Lords and survived. Some cosmic entity wouldn't rattle him. Then the Spectre appeared, and Anakin's confidence evaporated like moisture on Tatooine. "Anakin Skywalker," the Spirit of Vengeance said, materializing beside the starfighter without warning. "The Chosen One, born of the Force to bring balance. Tell me, do you feel balanced?" Anakin's hand went to his lightsaber, but something stopped him from drawing it. Not fear exactly. Recognition. The way prey recognizes a predator so far above them that fighting is meaningless. "Who are you?" Anakin demanded, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. "Someone who sees what you are. Not what the prophecy claims, not what the Council hopes, not what you pretend to be. I see the truth." The Spectre's emerald eyes blazed. "And the truth is, Anakin Skywalker, you're the most dangerous Jedi alive. Not because of your power, but because of how easily you'll betray everything you claim to love. I would never. You already have. The Spectre gestured, and the hangar dissolved. Suddenly Anakin stood in the Tusken Raider camp on Tatooine. He knew this moment. 4 years ago, when he'd found his mother dying, when rage had consumed him, when he'd... No, Anakin said, trying to look away. I don't want to see this. But you must. The Spectre's voice was implacable. You slaughtered them. The men, yes, they'd tortured your mother, and you told yourself they deserved death. But the women too, and the children, Anakin. You murdered children because their tribe had hurt someone you loved. Anakin watched his younger self move through the camp like a force of nature. Lightsaber cutting down everyone who moved. Women fleeing with infants. Children too young to understand what was happening. He'd told himself they were animals, that they didn't matter, that his rage was justified. But seeing it from outside, watching himself kill with cold efficiency, he saw the truth. It had been murder. Massacre. The act of someone who'd fallen to the dark side even if he'd climbed back out afterward. I told Padme, Anakin protested weakly. I confessed. I know it was wrong. You told her, yes, and she forgave you because she loves you. But did you ever face consequences? Did you turn yourself into the Council, accept judgment for slaughtering innocents? No. You buried it, convinced yourself it was a moment of weakness, and moved on. The Spectre's judgment was relentless. That's who you are, Anakin. Someone who commits atrocities and then expects forgiveness without accountability. The vision shifted. Now they were in the Jedi Council chamber, but different. A future scene, shadows and fire. Anakin watched himself kneel before a hooded figure he recognized with horror. Palpatine, revealed as a Sith Lord, and future Anakin was pledging himself to the dark side. This hasn't happened, Anakin said desperately. This is just one possibility. It's the most probable outcome, the Spectre interrupted. Because of what you are, because of the choices you're already making. Look closer. The vision showed more. Anakin leading clone troopers into the Jedi Temple, his lightsaber igniting to cut down Jedi he'd trained beside. Children huddling in the council chamber as his shadow fell across them. Padme dying, her last words a plea he wouldn't hear because he'd already gone too far. I would never hurt Padme, Anakin shouted. I love her. You love the idea of her. You love what she represents. Acceptance, affection, everything the Jedi deny you. But you don't love her enough to let her go. You don't love her enough to accept that some things are beyond your control. The Spectre's voice softened slightly. Not with mercy, but with something almost like pity. You've been having nightmares, haven't you? Visions of her dying in childbirth. Anakin's blood ran cold. He hadn't told anyone about the dreams, not Obi-Wan, not even Padme. How do you... I see all. The nightmares are real, Anakin. A possible future, not certain, but probable. And your response to that fear will determine everything. You'll be offered a choice. Accept death as natural, as the will of the Force, or do anything to prevent it, even if it means falling to darkness. I'll find another way, Anakin said. I'll save her without... There is no other way. The Spectre's words fell like an executioner's blade. Death comes for everyone. Even the chosen one cannot prevent it. But you'll try anyway. You'll make bargains with evil, commit horrors, betray everyone who trusts you. All in the name of love, and in the end, your actions will cause the very death you sought to prevent. The vision showed Padme's last moments again. Dying not from childbirth complications, but from heartbreak, from the knowledge that the man she loved had become a monster. Anakin, now fully transformed into Darth Vader, reaching for her with mechanical hands while she breathed her last. No, Anakin whispered. I won't let that happen. I'll change. I'll be better. Will you? The Spectre gestured, and new visions appeared. Moments from the past 3 years. Anakin disobeying orders when they conflicted with his emotions. Anakin using aggressive tactics that pushed the boundaries of the light side. Anakin keeping secrets from the Council, maintaining his forbidden marriage, confiding in Palpatine more than his own master. You've already chosen darkness in 1,000 small ways. You tell yourself they're necessary compromises, that your feelings make you stronger rather than weaker. But you're wrong. Your attachments don't make you more human. They make you controllable. And the Sith Lord who's been grooming you for years knows exactly which strings to pull. Palpatine isn't. Anakin stopped. The Spectre's knowing gaze told him the denial was pointless. You know about him? I know everything about him. And I know he's been cultivating you since you were 9 years old. Offering friendship when the Council offered discipline. Providing validation when your master provided criticism. Promising you power when the Jedi demanded restraint. He's shaped you into the perfect apprentice, and you've been too blind to see it. Anakin's mind reeled. Part of him wanted to reject everything the Spectre was saying, but another part, the part that woke screaming from nightmares about Padme, the part that resented the Council's restrictions, the part that craved the power to control everything, recognized the truth. What am I supposed to do? He asked quietly. The Council doesn't trust me. They gave me a seat, but not the rank of master. They asked me to spy on the Chancellor, to betray a friend. How am I supposed to serve the light when the Jedi treat me like someone who can't be trusted? The Spectre finished. Perhaps because you've proven untrustworthy. You're married despite your vows. You confide in a politician instead of your master. You use dark side techniques in combat and tell yourself it's justified. The Council's suspicion isn't prejudice, Anakin. It's accurate assessment. The words struck like physical blows. Anakin had spent years telling himself the Council was wrong about him, that they didn't understand him, that their rules were too rigid. But hearing it stated so plainly, without malice or emotion, just divine judgment. I'm not evil, he said, and hated how defensive he sounded. Not yet. But you're standing at the precipice, one choice away from falling. And when that moment comes, when Palpatine offers you the power to save Padme, when the Sith promise you everything the Jedi deny, you'll fall. Unless you change. Unless you accept the fundamental truth you've been running from your entire life. What truth? The Spectre's voice was absolute. That you cannot control everything. That some things must be accepted rather than fought. That love sometimes means letting go instead of holding tighter. That being the chosen one doesn't exempt you from the rules that bind all Force users. That power without wisdom is just destruction waiting to happen. Anakin stood silent, the weight of prophecy and judgment crushing down on him. He'd always believed his destiny was greatness, that being born of the Force meant he was meant for something special. But the Spectre was showing him a different destiny. One where his power became his downfall, where his inability to accept limits destroyed everything he loved. The Jedi tell me to let go of attachments, Anakin said finally. But Padme is my wife. I love her. How am I supposed to just accept her death if I have the power to prevent it? By understanding that some prices are too high. By recognizing that saving one life at the cost of your soul isn't salvation, it's damnation. The Spectre began to fade. You will face a choice, Anakin Skywalker. In that moment, you'll have to decide what matters more. Padme's life or your principles. Choose wisely, because if you choose wrong, the galaxy will burn. Wait, Anakin called. If you can see the future, can't you just tell me what to do? How to save her? The Spectre's final words echoed as he vanished. Free will is sacred, even when beings use it to choose damnation. I can judge, I can warn, but I cannot choose for you. Your fate, Anakin Skywalker, is in your own hands. Try not to strangle it. The hangar snapped back into focus. Maintenance droids continued their work on the starfighter. Clone troopers moved supplies. Everything was normal except for Anakin, who stood paralyzed by the knowledge that his future hung on a choice he hadn't made yet, but already knew he'd face. And in the shadows of the Force, something dark and patient smiled, confident that when the moment came, the Chosen One would choose exactly as predicted. The revelation came not with thunder, but with silence. 3 weeks after the Spectre first appeared, the Jedi Council convened an emergency session. Not via hologram this time. Every member had returned to Coruscant, abandoning their commands across the galaxy. The war continued without them. Clone troopers led by non-Jedi officers, and the fact that the battles proceeded just fine without Jedi generals was its own damning statement. They gathered in the council chamber as sunset painted Coruscant's endless towers in shades of amber and crimson. 12 masters, the wisest the Order could provide, sitting in a circle that had adjudicated galactic disputes for 1,000 years. Now they sat in judgment of themselves. Mace Windu spoke first, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "We cannot continue as we have been. The Spectre's judgment has made that clear. We've compromised our principles, sent our youngest members to die, commanded armies of enslaved soldiers. We've become generals when we should have remained peacekeepers." "Agree, I do," Yoda said quietly. The ancient master seemed diminished somehow, his 900 years sitting heavier on his shoulders than ever before. "Failed, we have. Lost our way in service to war. Question ourselves we must, before too late it becomes." Obi-Wan Kenobi, who'd spent the past weeks watching clone troopers die under his command while the Spectre's words echoed in his mind, nodded. "The being showed me my own compromises. The times I ordered advances knowing casualties would be high. The moments I chose military victory over Jedi principles. I've become a soldier who happens to carry a lightsaber, rather than a Jedi who sometimes fights." Around the circle, other masters shared similar confessions. Ki-Adi-Mundi spoke of battles where he'd prioritized objectives over clone lives. Plo Koon, despite his genuine care for the clones under his command, admitted he'd still treated them as resources rather than people. Shaak Ti described the Camino facilities where she'd watched accelerated growth chambers produce soldiers who'd never known childhood, and her shame at accepting it without protest. The Spectre materialized in the center of the circle without warning, his presence filling the chamber with the weight of absolute judgment. "So you acknowledge your sins," he said. "That's progress. But acknowledgement without action is just comfortable guilt. What will you do about it?" Mace met those burning emerald eyes. "We're prepared to resign our commissions, to withdraw the Jedi from military service, to return to our role as peacekeepers and mediators." "And the war?" the Spectre asked. "The Separatists won't stop fighting because the Jedi develop a conscience. The Republic still needs defenders." "Then the Republic's military will defend it," Obi-Wan said. "With non-Jedi commanders. The clone army can continue fighting under officers who view it as their primary purpose, not a distraction from their true calling." "How noble," a new voice said, dripping with sarcasm. Chancellor Palpatine entered the council chamber, his face arranged in an expression of concern that didn't reach his eyes. "The Jedi Order abandoning the Republic in its darkest hour. How very principled of you." "Chancellor," Mace said with forced courtesy, "this is a private council session." "Nothing involving galactic security is private," Palpatine interrupted, moving to stand beside the Spectre, who regarded him with undisguised recognition. "You Jedi accepted military rank. You swore to defend the Republic. And now, because some entity shows you uncomfortable truths, you want to run away?" "We're not running," Shaak Ti said firmly. "We're returning to our proper role. The Jedi should never have become generals. That was a mistake we're correcting." Palpatine's expression hardened. "A mistake that the Senate granted you the authority to make. If you wish to resign your commissions, you'll need Senate approval. And I assure you, the Senate will not look kindly on the Jedi Order abandoning its duty during wartime." The threat was implicit but clear. The Jedi's political position in the Republic depended on their service. Withdraw that service, and the Senate, under Palpatine's influence, would turn against them. "So we're trapped," Ki-Adi-Mundi said bitterly. "Continue as generals and damn ourselves further, or resign and lose what influence we have to guide the Republic toward peace." "Not trapped," the Spectre said, and all eyes turned to him. "Tested. The question isn't whether you can avoid consequences, it's whether you'll do what's right regardless of the cost." He turned to Palpatine, and the temperature in the chamber dropped. "But there's another factor here, one the Jedi Council hasn't fully grasped. Tell them, Chancellor. Tell them who you really are." Palpatine's mask of concern cracked. "I don't know what you mean." "Darth Sidious," the Spectre said, and the name fell like a bomb. "Dark Lord of the Sith, Master of Count Dooku, Orchestrator of the Clone Wars. The enemy the Jedi have been searching for, standing right in front of them for 13 years. The Council erupted. Lightsabers ignited in a cascade of colored light. Blue, green, purple plasma blades all pointed at the Chancellor of the Republic. Palpatine didn't move, but something shifted in his bearing. The elderly statesman's posture straightened. The concern in his eyes transformed into something ancient and cruel. "Finally, Palpatine," Sidious said, his voice deepening with dark side resonance. "I was wondering when someone would put it together. Though I expected the revelation to come from investigation, not divine intervention. How disappointing that the Jedi needed outside help to see what was right in front of them." "You orchestrated all of this," Mace said, his voice shaking with controlled rage. "The war, the clone army, our fall from grace, everything the Spectre accused us of. You manipulated us into it." "I provided opportunities," Sidious corrected with a smile. "You chose to take them. I didn't force the Jedi Order to accept military command. I didn't force you to lead clone armies. I merely created circumstances where those choices seemed necessary. Your compromises, your sins, those are your own." Yoda's ears flattened against his skull. "End this war now you will. Confess to the Senate you must. Face justice for your crimes. Or what? You'll strike me down?" Sidious spread his arms, inviting attack. "I'm an unarmed politician in the Jedi Temple, surrounded by Jedi with drawn weapons. Kill me, and you prove every fear the Senate has about your order. You become assassins, executioners without trial. Everything I've whispered about the Jedi's dangerous power becomes true." It was a perfect trap, and every Jedi in the room felt it close around them. They couldn't kill him without proof. His word against theirs, a Chancellor versus the Jedi Order. The Senate would side with Palpatine, especially with him playing the victim. And they couldn't let him go, knowing what he was, what he'd done. "I can offer proof," the Spectre said quietly. "I see all sins. I can testify to the Senate. Show them what you are." "You?" Sidious laughed. "A being from beyond their reality. Claiming divine authority? The Senate will dismiss you as a Jedi trick. They'll say the Order manufactured you to eliminate a political rival. No, creature. Your testimony is worthless here." "Then we take you into custody," Mace said, his lightsaber steady despite the dark side energy rolling off the Sith Lord. "We present you to the Senate, demand investigation. Even you can't have hidden every trace of your identity. We'll find proof." "You could try," Sidious agreed. "But the moment you move against me, Order 66 activates. Hundreds of Jedi generals across the galaxy, surrounded by clone troopers whose programming includes one simple command: eliminate the Jedi. I press a button, and your order dies in minutes." The revelation struck like a physical blow. The Spectre had warned them about Order 66, but hearing Sidious confirm it, understanding that every Jedi in the field was surrounded by weapons pointed at their backs. "The biochips," Obi-Wan said, understanding flooding through him. "Fives tried to warn us. He said there was something in the clones' brains, a protocol we didn't know about. We dismissed it as madness." "Not madness," Sidious confirmed. "Contingency. The clone army was always mine, designed to serve me when the moment came. You've been commanding your own executioners, trusting beings programmed to kill you on my command. Poetic, isn't it?" The Council stood frozen in impossible choice. Attack Sidious and trigger Order 66, killing hundreds of Jedi. Let him go and allow the Sith Lord to continue manipulating the Republic. There was no good option, no path that didn't lead to disaster. "This is your judgment," the Spectre said, addressing the Council. "Not from me, but from the consequences of your choices. You accepted military command without question. You trusted the clone army without investigating its origins. You were so focused on fighting the visible enemy that you ignored the hidden one. Now you face the price." "What would you have us do?" Shaak Ti demanded. "There's no winning here." "There's always a choice," the Spectre replied. The question is whether you'll make it based on principle or on survival. Mace looked around the circle, at masters who'd become generals, at Jedi who'd compromised their way into a trap with no escape. The Spectre was right. This was judgment. Not divine punishment from above, but the natural consequence of abandoning their path. "We resign," Mace said finally. "Immediately. We withdraw all Jedi from military service, refuse to continue fighting this war, and we expose Palpatine as a Sith Lord, even if the Senate doesn't believe us, even if it costs us everything. Because that's what Jedi do. We serve the light, even when it's suicidal." "You'll doom your order," Sidious warned. "Perhaps," Mace agreed, "but we'll doom it on our own terms, staying true to what we are rather than what you've been turning us into. The Jedi Order may fall, but it won't fall as your puppets." The Spectre nodded approvingly. "Finally. A choice made from principle rather than pragmatism. It may cost you everything, but at least you'll pay the price with integrity intact." Sidious's expression darkened with genuine anger. "You're forcing my hand prematurely. I'm not ready for the transition. The Empire isn't fully prepared." "You're disrupting years of planning." "Good," Yoda said simply. "Disrupt you, we will. Destroy us, you may. But serve you, we will not." The Sith Lord's facade cracked completely. Dark side energy erupted from him in waves, the air crackling with barely contained rage. "So be it. If the Order wants martyrdom, I'll oblige. But know this, your sacrifice will be meaningless. I'll still build my empire. I'll still hunt down every surviving Jedi. The only thing your defiance achieves is dying with false pride, instead of living with compromise." "Then that's what we choose," Mace said. And for the first time in 3 years, his voice carried absolute certainty. The Spectre stepped back, his role complete. He'd shown them their sins. He'd forced them to confront their compromises. Now they'd made a choice, perhaps a fatal one, but a genuine choice nonetheless. What happened next would define whether the Jedi Order died with honor or survived with shame. The galaxy learned of the Jedi's decision through an emergency broadcast that interrupted every HoloNet channel simultaneously. Master Mace Windu appeared on screens from the core worlds to the Outer Rim, his expression grave but resolute. Behind him stood the entire Jedi Council, a united front that hadn't been seen since the war began. And hovering at the edge of the frame, visible but deliberately not the focus, stood the Spectre, a reminder that this announcement came from cosmic necessity rather than political maneuvering. "Citizens of the Republic," Mace began, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 generations. "The Jedi Order must confess a truth we have hidden from ourselves and from you. We have failed in our sacred duty." Across Coruscant, in Senate offices and military command centers, beings stopped to watch. On separatist worlds, Count Dooku observed with narrow-eyed interest. In the Chancellor's office, Palpatine stood before the broadcast with clenched fists, forced to watch his carefully constructed plans unravel. "For 3 years, we have served as generals in a war we should never have fought. We accepted military command, led clone armies into battle, and compromised the principles that define us. We told ourselves it was necessary, that the Republic needed us. But necessity is not the same as righteousness, and we can no longer continue down this path." Mace paused, letting the words sink in across trillions of viewers. "Effective immediately, every Jedi is withdrawing from military service. We resign our commissions, relinquish command of the Grand Army of the Republic, and return to our true calling as peacekeepers and mediators. The war will continue, but it will continue without us." The HoloNet erupted with shocked commentary. Senate voices demanded explanation. Military analysts questioned how the Republic would fight without Jedi commanders. And on battlefields across the galaxy, clone troopers looked at their Jedi generals with confusion and a strange programmed tension they couldn't quite explain. "But there is more you must know," Mace continued, his voice hardening. "We have discovered that this war, the Clone Wars that has ravaged the galaxy, was orchestrated by a Sith Lord. The enemy we've been fighting is not just the Separatists, but a darkness that has manipulated both sides from the beginning." Obi-Wan stepped forward, his presence adding credibility. "Chancellor Palpatine is Darth Sidious, Dark Lord of the Sith. He has played both sides of this conflict, engineering the war to accumulate power and destroy the Jedi Order. We call upon the Senate to investigate these claims immediately and thoroughly." The reaction was instantaneous. Half the Senate began shouting denials. The other half demanded evidence. Palpatine himself appeared on competing broadcasts within minutes, his face arranged in perfect wounded indignation. "These accusations are desperate lies from an order that knows its failures have been exposed," Palpatine declared, his voice trembling with manufactured emotion. "The Jedi cannot accept responsibility for their compromises, so they create a conspiracy theory to justify abandoning the Republic in its hour of need. I am deeply hurt that beings I considered friends would stoop to such slander." It was masterful political theater. Palpatine cast himself as the victim, the dedicated public servant unfairly attacked by an institution losing its legitimacy. And across the Republic, citizens who'd grown weary of Jedi military authority found his narrative more believable than accusations of secret Sith infiltration. The Senate convened an emergency session within hours. The chamber was packed, galleries filled with observers, security doubled. Palpatine sat in the Chancellor's pod, looking every inch the wronged statesman. The Jedi Council stood in the central platform, surrounded by senators demanding answers. "You make extraordinary claims," Senator Orn Free Taa declared, his multiple chins wobbling with indignation. "Where is your proof? What evidence can you present beyond the word of an order that has just admitted to 3 years of moral failure?" Mace looked to the Spectre, who materialized beside the Jedi with a flash of emerald fire that made half the Senate gasp. The spirit of vengeance surveyed the assembled politicians with contempt. "I am proof," the Spectre said, his voice resonating through the chamber. "I see all sins, all deceptions. Palpatine is Darth Sidious. I have witnessed his crimes across decades, the manipulation of Trade Federation leadership, the engineering of the Naboo crisis, the commissioning of the clone army through his puppet identity, the orchestration of Count Dooku's separatist movement. Every aspect of this war traces back to him." "And who are you?" Senator Bail Organa asked carefully. "What authority do you claim?" "I am the Spectre. Spirit of vengeance, hand of the presence that exists beyond your force. I am divine judgment made manifest, and I do not lie." "Divine judgment?" Senator Ask-Ak scoffed. "The Jedi bring us religious mysticism and call it evidence. This being could be anything. A Force illusion, a Jedi trick, a holographic deception. We need tangible proof, not supernatural testimony." It was exactly as Sidious had predicted. The Senate, steeped in rationalism and bureaucracy, couldn't accept evidence from a being that existed outside their framework of reality. The Spectre's testimony, absolute as it was, carried no weight in a political arena that demanded documentation and procedures. Palpatine rose, his voice sorrowful. "My friends, I do not blame the Jedi for these accusations. They are troubled, confused, struggling with the burden of war. But I cannot allow them to destroy the Republic with conspiracy theories. If they wish to withdraw from military service, that is their right. But they will not tear down our democracy with baseless accusations against its elected leader." "Baseless?" Yoda stepped forward, his ancient voice cutting through the noise. "Search his office you should. Find communications with separatist leaders you will. Find evidence of his identity you must." "Search the Chancellor's private office?" Senator Masameda looked horrified. "On what grounds? The word of beings who just admitted to 3 years of moral compromise? That sets a dangerous precedent. Any politician could be investigated based on accusation alone." "Then grant us a formal investigation," Obi-Wan pressed. "Assign a Senate committee. We'll provide what leads we have." Surely the Chancellor, if innocent, would welcome the opportunity to clear his name. Palpatine spread his hands in a gesture of openness. "I would welcome such an investigation, if the Senate deems it necessary. I have nothing to hide. But I will not allow the Jedi Order to hold the Republic hostage with threats and demands. The Senate must decide. Do you trust your elected Chancellor? Or do you trust an institution that has just confessed to abandoning its principles?" The vote, when it came, was devastatingly predictable. The Senate, war-weary and skeptical of Jedi motives, voted down the investigation. Instead, they passed a resolution accepting the Jedi's resignation from military command while censuring them for reckless accusations against the Republic's leadership. Palpatine had won. Again. He'd turned the Jedi's principled stand into political suicide, their confession of wrongdoing into evidence of unreliability. The Republic wouldn't investigate him, the Senate wouldn't challenge him, and the Jedi Order, having abandoned their military positions, now had no political leverage to force the issue. In the Jedi Council chamber afterward, the mood was grim, but not defeated. "We did what we had to do," Mace said, looking at the faces of his fellow masters. "The Senate doesn't believe us. Palpatine remains in power, but at least we're no longer complicit in his schemes." "At what cost?" Ki-Adi-Mundi asked. "We've lost all political influence. The clone army still exists, still follows his orders. We've withdrawn from the war, but the war continues without us. What have we actually achieved?" "Integrity," the Spectre said, appearing one last time in their chamber. "You've reclaimed what you lost. That may seem small against the scope of Sidious's plans, but it matters. The Jedi Order stands again for principles rather than pragmatism. Whatever comes next, you'll face it as who you truly are." "But Order 66 still exists," Obi-Wan said quietly. Palpatine made that clear. He can still activate it, kill every Jedi across the galaxy. We're more vulnerable now than when we commanded the clones. "Yes," the Spectre acknowledged. "Your choice to stand on principle has made you weaker tactically, but stronger spiritually. That's what judgment means, accepting consequences for doing what's right." "Will you help us?" Shakti asked. "You have power beyond the Force. You could stop Palpatine, prevent Order 66, save the Jedi Order." The Spectre's expression was implacable. "I cannot. My purpose is judgment, not intervention. I can punish sins already committed. I can show beings the truth of what they are. But I cannot prevent future sins. That would violate free will, which is sacred to the presence I serve. Palpatine must be allowed to make his choices, just as you must be allowed to make yours." "Even if those choices lead to genocide?" Mace demanded. "Even then, free will includes the freedom to choose evil. If I prevented every potential sin, beings would be puppets, not moral agents. I can judge Palpatine for his crimes, but only after he commits them." The Spectre's voice softened slightly. "But know this. When he does activate Order 66, when he commits his genocide and builds his empire on the bodies of Jedi dead, I will return. And on that day, not all the dark side power in the galaxy will save him from divine retribution." "That's not comfort to the Jedi who'll die," Obi-Wan said bitterly. "No," the Spectre agreed. "It's not. Judgment is rarely comfortable. It's simply just." He began to fade, his purpose fulfilled. The Jedi Order had been judged, had faced their sins, had made a choice to reclaim their integrity despite the cost. What happened next would unfold according to the free will of all involved, Jedi, Sith, clone, and citizen alike. "One more thing," the Spectre said as his form became translucent. "Anakin Skywalker. He stands at the precipice I showed him. The moment of choice approaches. Whether he falls or rises depends on him alone, but the Order might consider treating him as more than a weapon or a prophecy. He's a person, confused and conflicted. What he needs most is compassion, not suspicion." "We'll try," Obi-Wan promised, though his voice carried uncertainty. The Spectre vanished completely, leaving the Jedi Council alone with the consequences of their decision. Across Coruscant, in the Chancellor's office, Palpatine stood before the citywide sunset and smiled. The Jedi had played right into his hands. They'd confessed to moral failure, lost public support, withdrawn from positions of power. They'd accused him of being a Sith Lord, and the Senate had dismissed the claim as desperate conspiracy theory. Order 66 waited in every clone trooper's brain, ready to activate the moment he chose. The Jedi were scattered, vulnerable, isolated from the political and military structures that might have protected them. Everything was proceeding exactly as he'd foreseen. Almost everything. The Spectre remained an unknown variable, a being with power outside the Force, immune to Sith manipulation, capable of seeing through every deception. Palpatine had fought him to a stalemate, but that wasn't the same as victory. And the creature's promise of future judgment was troubling. But that was a problem for later. For now, the Jedi Order had been broken without him even activating Order 66. They'd destroyed themselves through principle, and that was far more satisfying than any genocide could be. Palpatine reached for his comlink. Commander Cody, begin recalling all clone legions to Republic-controlled systems. The Jedi are no longer in command. It's time for the military to return to proper leadership. Yes, Chancellor, the clone commander responded, his voice carrying none of the confusion or emotion that might have accompanied such a dramatic shift. Because the clones were programmed, designed to follow orders, and when the time came, they'd follow the one order that mattered. But not yet. Palpatine was patient. He'd waited decades for this moment. He could wait a little longer, let the Jedi stew in their powerlessness, let the galaxy grow even more dependent on his leadership. And when he finally gave the order, when every Jedi fell simultaneously across 1,000 worlds, it would be all the sweeter for the anticipation. The Spectre had judged the Jedi for their sins, but he'd inadvertently delivered them into Palpatine's hands, weakened and isolated, ripe for the slaughter. The dark side, it seemed, had its own form of justice. The moment came 6 weeks later, on a cold morning when Coruscant's artificial climate systems failed to mask the chill of political winter. Anakin Skywalker stood in Palpatine's office, his world crumbling. The nightmares about Padme had intensified. She was pregnant. Twins, the medical droid said. And every night he watched her die in visions that felt more real than waking life. The Jedi Council, already suspicious of him, had grown more distant since their withdrawal from the war. They'd asked him to spy on Palpatine before the revelation, and even after exposing the Chancellor as a Sith Lord, they treated Anakin like a liability. He had nowhere to turn except to the one person who'd always accepted him without judgment. "You're troubled, my boy," Palpatine said, his voice warm despite the monster he'd been revealed to be. "The Council treats you poorly, even now. They fear your power, your potential. They always have. They fear what I might become," Anakin said quietly. "The Spectre showed me a vision. A future where I fall to the dark side, where I hurt everyone I love." "Ah yes, the Cosmic Judge," Palpatine's lip curled. "He showed you one possible future, Anakin. Not the only future. The galaxy is filled with infinite possibilities. He showed me Padme dying, in childbirth." Anakin's voice broke. "I can't let that happen. I won't." Palpatine moved closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "The Jedi would tell you to accept it, to let go, to trust in the Force. But I can offer something better. I can offer you the power to save her." Anakin's head snapped up. "What are you talking about?" "Darth Plagueis the Wise, my master. Learned to manipulate the midi-chlorians to create life, to prevent death. He taught me these secrets before his apprentice killed him in his sleep." Palpatine's yellow eyes gleamed. Ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself. "You're saying you can save Padme?" Hope and desperation warred in Anakin's voice. "I'm saying the dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. The Jedi won't teach you this power. They'll let Padme die while they lecture you about acceptance. But if you turn to me, if you embrace what you truly are, I can show you how to save her." It was the moment the Spectre had warned about, the choice that would define everything. Anakin stood at the precipice, feeling the pull of darkness promising everything the light denied him. And then the office door exploded inward. The Spectre manifested with such force that reality cracked around him, emerald fire burning away Palpatine's shadows. Mace Windu followed immediately after, his purple lightsaber ignited, flanked by Kit Fisto, Ajan Kolar, and Sayesi Teen. The Jedi had finally moved against the Sith Lord, and they'd brought divine judgment with them. "Anakin, step away from him," Mace commanded, his voice allowing no argument. But Anakin didn't move. He stood frozen between the Jedi Masters and the Sith Lord, between light and darkness, between the principles he'd been taught and the power he desperately needed. "You're too late, Master Windu," Palpatine said, dark side energy crackling around him. "The boy has already made his choice. Haven't you, Anakin?" Anakin looked at the Jedi Masters. At Mace Windu, who'd never trusted him, at the Order that had treated him like a weapon rather than a person. Then he looked at Palpatine, who offered the one thing that mattered: Padmé's life. "I can't let her die." "Then you've fallen," Mace said, genuine sorrow in his voice. "The Spectre warned us this would happen. Warned you this would happen. And still you choose darkness." "I choose Padmé," Anakin shouted. "I choose love over your cold detachment. I choose power that can actually save people, instead of principles that just let them die." The Spectre stepped forward, his presence making even Palpatine hesitate. "Anakin Skywalker, you stand at the moment I showed you. The choice is yours. But understand, if you embrace the dark side to save Padmé, you will become the very thing that kills her. The vision I showed you wasn't a warning of what might be. It was a warning of what will be if you make this choice." "You're lying," Anakin said, but his voice wavered. "You're trying to manipulate me like everyone else." "I am incapable of lies. Divine judgment speaks only truth." The Spectre's emerald eyes blazed. "If you turn to darkness, Padmé will die of a broken heart, knowing what you've become. Your children will grow up without parents. One raised by the rebellion you'll hunt, one twisted by the empire you'll serve. You will live in agony for decades, a slave to Palpatine, until your son redeems you at the cost of your life. That is the future you're choosing. But there's another path," Mace said urgently. "Trust the Force, Anakin. Trust that some things are beyond our control. Trust that love doesn't mean possession. That sometimes letting go is the greatest act of devotion. Choose the light and we'll help you, all of us. We'll find another way to help Padmé, but not through darkness." Anakin's hand hovered near his lightsaber. The office was silent, except for the hum of ignited blades and the crackling of dark side energy. Everything, the fate of the galaxy, the survival of the Jedi Order, the life of his wife and unborn children, balanced on this single moment. Palpatine began to move, fingers crackling with Force lightning, ready to strike down the Jedi Masters while Anakin was paralyzed with indecision. And the Spectre acted. Not to choose for Anakin. That would violate free will. But to judge Palpatine for the sins he was actively committing. The spirit of vengeance erupted with divine power that transcended anything the Force could generate. Emerald fire engulfed Sidious, and for the first time in decades, the Dark Lord of the Sith screamed. "You said you would wait until after Order 66, Palpatine gasped, dark side power burning away under the assault of cosmic justice. "I haven't committed genocide yet." "But you've committed murder," the Spectre replied, his voice absolute. "Thousands of deaths across decades, manipulation that led to millions dying in a war you orchestrated. Plagueis' murder, the Jedi you've had assassinated, the innocents sacrificed to your ambition. Those sins are enough to warrant judgment." Divine fire and Sith darkness collided in a contest that made their previous stalemate look like a sparring match. This time, the Spectre wasn't restrained by Palpatine's connection to fundamental darkness. This time, he wielded the full weight of cosmic justice against sins already committed. And even a Sith Lord, even Darth Sidious at the height of his power, couldn't stand against that. "Anakin!" Palpatine screamed, his flesh beginning to burn under Emerald judgment. "Help me! Use your power! Together we can defeat this creature, save Padmé, rule the galaxy. Don't let the Jedi's lies control you." Mace Windu raised his lightsaber, ready to end Sidious, while the Spectre held him. "It's over, Palpatine. Your manipulations end here." But Anakin moved. His lightsaber ignited with its distinctive snap hiss, blue plasma blade humming to life. And every being in the room held their breath, waiting to see which way the Chosen One would strike. The blade swept down, and severed Palpatine's hand as he reached for Anakin with Force lightning. "No," Anakin said, his voice breaking with emotion. No more lies, no more manipulation. You promised me power to save Padme, but the Spectre is right. Your power only destroys. I've seen what I become if I follow you. I've seen the monster, and I can't become that. Tears streamed down his face as he stepped back, lightsaber lowering. I don't know if Padme will die. I don't know if I can save her. But I know that falling to darkness to prevent it will only guarantee I lose her. The Spectre showed me that, and I finally believe it. Palpatine, his hand severed and divine judgment burning through his defenses, snarled with pure hatred. Fool! You've doomed her! You've doomed yourself! When she dies, you'll remember this moment. Remember that you could have saved her but chose weakness. Then I choose weakness, Anakin said quietly, if that's what you call staying in the light. The Spectre's judgment intensified. Divine fire consumed Palpatine completely, burning away decades of accumulated darkness, punishment for sins that stretched back before Anakin was born. The Sith Lord's screams echoed through the Force itself, a warning to any who would follow his path. When the fire faded, Darth Sidious lay broken on the floor of his own office, alive but shattered. His connection to the Force was severed, not destroyed, but damaged beyond his ability to wield it. The dark side power he'd cultivated for decades was gone, burned away by cosmic justice. He lives, the Spectre said, looking at the Jedi Masters. Broken, but alive. Because death would be mercy, and mercy is not what he deserves. Let him face trial in the Senate he manipulated. Let him spend whatever years remain in a cell, powerless, watching the empire he dreamed of crumble before it's even built. Mace Windu deactivated his lightsaber, staring at Palpatine's ruined form. It's over. The Sith Lord is defeated. The war will end. Obi-Wan's voice came from the doorway. The Jedi Master had arrived with clone troopers, but not to execute Order 66, to arrest the Chancellor. Count Dooku just surrendered to Republic forces. With Sidious fallen, the Separatist leadership is in chaos. The Clone Wars are over. Anakin collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had almost happened. What he'd almost become. The Spectre approached him. Divine presence still crackling with judgment. You chose correctly, Anakin Skywalker. At the last possible moment, facing the ultimate temptation, you chose light over darkness. That takes more strength than you know. But Padme! Anakin looked up with desperate eyes. The vision. Will she die? I don't know, the Spectre admitted. The future is not fixed. You've changed it by changing yourself. She may live. She may die. But whatever happens, you'll face it as a Jedi, not as Darth Vader. And your children, Luke and Leia, will grow up knowing their father chose righteousness over power. Luke and Leia, Anakin whispered, testing the names. Twins. Twins who will inherit your strength and their mother's compassion. Who will shape the galaxy in ways you cannot imagine. But only if you remain who you are now. Flawed, conflicted, but fundamentally good. The Spectre began to fade, his judgment of the Jedi Order and its greatest threat complete. My work here is done. The Jedi have reclaimed their integrity. The Sith Lord is broken. The Chosen One has chosen light. What happens next is up to all of you. As divine fire flickered and dimmed, Mace Windu helped Anakin to his feet. You did well, Skywalker. Better than any of us expected. The Council, we failed you. Treated you with suspicion when you needed guidance. That changes now. If you'll let it, Anakin said quietly. I'm not sure I trust myself anymore. Then trust the Force, Obi-Wan said, gripping his former Padawan's shoulder. And trust that we'll help you. No more secrets. No more manipulation. Just Jedi, trying to find their way back to the light. The Spectre's final words echoed through the chamber as he vanished completely. Remember this moment, Jedi. Remember that judgment brought you here. But choice determines where you go. May you walk in light, even when darkness calls. And he was gone, leaving the Jedi Order to rebuild themselves and a galaxy to heal from a war that should never have happened. 3 months after Palpatine's fall, The galaxy was unrecognizable. The former Chancellor sat in a Republic detention center, stripped of power and force ability, awaiting trial for war crimes. Count Dooku, having witnessed his master's divine judgment through their force bond, had surrendered to the Republic and cooperated fully with investigators. The separatist movement collapsed as the truth of its Sith manipulation became public. Trillions of beings who died in the Clone Wars now had answers about who was responsible. The Jedi Temple bustled with activity, but different than before. No more war rooms, no more tactical briefings. Instead, the halls echoed with meditation, with philosophical debate, with the sound of younglings learning lightsaber forms for defense rather than warfare. Mace Windu stood in the council chamber, looking out over Coruscant's endless cityscape. The scars of war were still visible. Damaged buildings, military checkpoints being dismantled, clone troopers transitioning to civilian roles, or choosing to remain in a reformed Republic military. The healing would take years, but it had begun. "Master Windu," a voice called. Anakin Skywalker entered, looking more at peace than Mace had ever seen him. "The medical droids say Padme is ready for visitors. I thought the council might want to meet the twins." Mace smiled, a genuine expression that felt foreign after years of wartime grimness. "We'd be honored." In the medical center, Padme Amidala held 2 infants, Luke and Leia, born healthy despite Anakin's visions. The pregnancy had been complicated, but with Anakin no longer poisoned by fear and darkness. With the best medical care the Republic could provide, mother and children had survived. The Jedi Council gathered around the young family, and for a moment, they weren't generals or warriors or judges. They were simply beings witnessing new life, hope made manifest. "They're beautiful," Shakti said softly, reaching out to touch Leia's tiny hand. The infant gripped her finger with surprising strength. "Strong in the Force they are," Yoda observed, his ancient eyes twinkling. "Great things they will do. But Jedi they need not become, if that path they do not choose. Learned we have, that the Force serves many purposes. Not all Force sensitives must be warriors." It was a radical statement from the Grand Master, but then everything about the Jedi Order had changed. The rigid doctrine that had defined them for generations was being questioned, examined, reformed. They were learning to be peacekeepers again, but also learning what that truly meant. "The Senate has requested Jedi mediators for the treaty negotiations with former separatist worlds," Obi-Wan reported. "They want us to help facilitate peace, not enforce it. It's refreshing, actually. Doing what we're supposed to do." "Long road ahead we have," Yoda said. "Mistakes we have made, sins we have committed, but judgment we have faced, and better we can become." Across the galaxy, changes rippled outward. The clone army was being decommissioned gradually, with individual troopers given choices for the first time in their engineered lives. Some joined the Republic military as career soldiers, by choice now, not genetic programming. Others took civilian jobs, learning trades, building lives beyond warfare. A few even joined the Jedi as temple guards or support staff, finding purpose in protecting rather than destroying. Commander Cody, freed from the Spectre of Order 66 that had lurked in his programming, stood on Kamino watching the last batch of clone embryos being terminated. No more accelerated aging, no more engineered soldiers. The Republic had declared it would build its future military from volunteers, and while that meant a smaller force, it meant one that chose to serve. "Feels wrong, shutting this down," one of his brothers said. "This place created us." "This place enslaved us," Cody corrected. "We just didn't know it. Now we do. Now we choose." On Coruscant, in a courtroom packed with observers, Palpatine's trial began. Stripped of his force powers, aged beyond his artificial youth, the former Chancellor looked small and pathetic. But the evidence of his crimes was overwhelming. Dooku's testimony, financial records of separatist funding traced to Sidious's accounts, communication logs showing his manipulation of both sides. The Senate, which had once dismissed Jedi accusations as conspiracy theories, now faced undeniable proof. Some senators wept, Others raged at their own blindness. All recognized that democracy had come within inches of dying, saved only by the Jedi's principled stand and divine intervention. "The sentence is imprisonment for life," the presiding judge declared. "You will spend your remaining years in isolation, unable to harm anyone else, unable to wield the power you craved. You will live knowing that your empire never came to pass, that your grand vision died before it began." Palpatine's yellow eyes blazed with impotent fury, but he said nothing. What was there to say? He'd lost. Completely. Absolutely. And unlike his Sith predecessors, he wouldn't even die with dignity. He'd rot in a cell, forgotten, powerless, while the galaxy healed without him. In the Jedi Temple, late at night when the corridors were quiet, the Spectre appeared one final time. He manifested in the Room of 1,000 Fountains, where Anakin sat in meditation, trying to master the peace that had eluded him for so long. The young Jedi's eyes opened as divine presence filled the chamber. "You came back," Anakin said. "To see how you've grown," the Spectre replied. "To witness whether the choice you made held, or if darkness still called to you." "It calls," Anakin admitted. "Every day. I still have nightmares sometimes, still feel anger, fear, attachment, but I don't let them control me anymore. I acknowledge them, then let them go. It's harder than falling would have been, but it's right." "That's wisdom," the Spectre said approvingly. "The light side isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about not being ruled by it. You're learning the difference. The Jedi Order is learning too. You've all grown from judgment." "Will you stay?" Anakin asked. "Help us rebuild? You have power beyond anything we understand. You could—" "No," the Spectre interrupted gently. "My purpose was judgment, not construction. You must build your new order yourselves, through choice and effort and sometimes failure. That's how beings grow, through struggle, not divine intervention. I came to show you what you become. What you do with that knowledge is your responsibility." He began to fade, divine fire dimming to embers. "Will we see you again?" Anakin asked. "Perhaps. If the Jedi Order falls again into darkness, if cosmic injustice demands attention, I'll return. But I hope I won't need to. I hope you'll remain true to what you've learned." "We'll try," Anakin promised. "For Padme, for my children, for every clone who died trusting Jedi to lead them wisely. We'll try to be worthy of the second chance you gave us." The Spectre smiled, the first time his terrible features had shown anything approximating warmth. "That's all anyone can do. Try, fail sometimes, learn, and try again. Even Jedi, even the Chosen One." His form became translucent, emerald fire scattering into motes of light. "Remember, Anakin Skywalker, balance isn't absence of darkness. It's choosing light despite darkness's presence. You embody that now. Live it. Teach it to your children. Show the galaxy what the Chosen One truly means." And he vanished, leaving only the sound of fountains and the faint scent of ozone. Across Coruscant, in his detention cell, Palpatine felt the Spectre's departure through the shattered remnants of his Force sensitivity. The cosmic judge was gone. The Jedi Order was reforming. The galaxy was healing. Everything he'd built had crumbled. But somewhere in his broken mind, Darth Sidious smiled. Because he'd been patient once before, building his power over decades while everyone assumed the Sith were extinct. He could be patient again. He was mortal now, weakened, imprisoned. But the dark side was eternal. And empires built on light always, eventually, created shadows where darkness could breed. The Spectre had judged him. The Republic had sentenced him. The Jedi thought they'd won. But the game wasn't over. It was just paused. And when beings grew complacent, when they forgot the lessons of this war, when new generations arose who didn't remember what corruption looked like, then the Sith would return. Maybe not him. Maybe not in his lifetime. But the rule of two ensured darkness was never truly destroyed, only diminished temporarily. Palpatine closed his yellow eyes and dreamed of empires yet to come, built on the bones of Jedi who'd forgotten why they needed to stay vigilant. But that was a problem for another time, for another generation, for another cosmic judge perhaps, if beings once again needed reminder of the price of moral compromise. For now, the galaxy had chosen light. And that would have to be enough. The Spectre's judgment of the Jedi Order became legend across the galaxy, a story told in academies and temples, in Senate chambers and military barracks. The cosmic entity that had appeared to hold the Guardians of Peace accountable for their wartime sins, that had exposed a Sith Lord's decades of manipulation, that had given the Chosen One his final chance to choose light over darkness. The Jedi Order that emerged from judgment was humbler, wiser, more cautious about accepting power. They remained peacekeepers and mediators, but now they questioned their role constantly, examined their choices carefully, never again assuming that good intentions justified questionable means. The council included former clone troopers as advisors, ensuring military perspectives came from those who'd experienced warfare's cost directly. Anakin Skywalker never forgot the vision the Spectre showed him, the monster he'd almost become, the family he'd almost destroyed. He raised Luke and Leia with Padme, teaching them about the Force but also about choice, about how power without wisdom led to tyranny. When they were old enough, he told them everything. About his near fall, about the war, about the price of compromising principles for pragmatic goals. Mace Windu resigned from the council 3 years later, choosing instead to travel the Outer Rim as a wandering peacekeeper. He'd carried the weight of too many deaths, made too many calculations about acceptable casualties. He needed to remember what individual lives meant, what justice looked like on a personal scale rather than a galactic one. Eventually, he found peace, not through forgetting his sins, but through accepting them and working to balance the scales. The clone troopers built lives free from genetic programming and military service. Some thrived. Some struggled with civilian existence. All carried scars from a war they'd been engineered to fight. But they were free, and that mattered more than comfort. Palpatine died in his cell 11 years later. His grand vision of empire nothing but fever dreams in a broken mind. No apprentice rose to continue his work. No secret contingency plans activated. Darth Sidious, the most ambitious Sith Lord in a millennium, simply ended. His funeral was small, attended only by archivists recording history's villains. The galaxy healed slowly, building a republic that learned from its near death. Democracy became more robust, with safeguards against the concentration of emergency powers. The Senate included former separatist worlds, recognizing that many had legitimate grievances buried under Sith manipulation. And somewhere beyond the Force, beyond the physical universe, the Spectre watched. Divine judgment had been rendered. Choices had been made. The beings of that galaxy far, far away would continue making choices. Some wise, some foolish, some evil, some heroic. That was the nature of free will, the gift and curse of beings who could choose their own paths. The Spectre's work was complete, until the day, if ever it came, when cosmic injustice again demanded divine attention. May the Force be with you. More stories await.